Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of Monday, April the 8th, 2024. I ask that all not signed in, please do so. Please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices. Please conduct any private conversations in the hallway or outside. This meeting room is equipped with the inductive loop hearing assistance system. You'll be able to hear conversations through the microphones on hearing aids with a T-switch. Emergency exits will be found on your right and to your left. This meeting is also live streamed as via YouTube with text commenting available. At this time, if you please join the town board in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everyone. Certainly an interesting day. Western New York's cloud cover came through for us. But we're here. We kept open. We had our town clerk at the last meeting. First of all, I have no announcements. And at the last town board meeting, clerk read the public hearing notice. We kept the public hearing open for written comments, as well as an opportunity again this evening for residents here to state their concerns. I would like to state that there is one letter we did receive from a Carol McInnes. Town board members have been copied on this and will enter this into the public record. She is a resident on Main Street, Fishers. At this time, we will again open it up for public comment. Please, as we have asked previously, certainly state your name for the record and try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Donahue. I'm with Norbit Solar Farms. It's good to see you all again. We fully anticipate that the town will adopt this moratorium. And while we sincerely think that the current solar law is sufficiently robust, we understand that some disagree. We hope to work with you while you develop a new local law that is fair to all stakeholders. As to the NSF Victor 2 project, that is the one on County Road 41, we listened to what neighbors said at the last meeting, and we really took their concerns to heart. As a result, we are pulling back the Victor 2 project as planned. Preliminarily, we're looking to move the project further south and maintain ownership of that parcel and potentially use it for interconnection. Doing so would address many of the concerns that the neighboring residents raised at the last meeting. And we hope that this shows that we are committed to being good neighbors in the town of Victor. While we continue to think that the Victor 1 project, that's the one on Main Street Fishers, is appropriately cited, we are working to address neighbors' concerns regarding stormwater, glare, and other issues. If and when the town does enter the moratorium and begins working towards a new comprehensive solar law, we ask that you just include us in those conversations and give us a seat at the table so that we make sure that the town of Victor does not unintentionally restrict solar in the town. Thank you. That's all I have today, and we look forward to hopefully working with you on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Other members of the public care to speak for or against this moratorium?
Hello, my name is Nicole Johnston, and I live in the Bluemont Rise community abutting the 88 acres off County Road 41. And I spoke at last month's meeting expressing my support for the 6-month moratorium to reflect on the consequences of solar farm development in the backyards of neighborhoods and on prime agricultural land. We purchased our home and chose to build on that lot specifically for the serenity of the horse farm and the agricultural views. We chose to build there to give our kids the lifestyle surrounded by nature. For anyone questioning the impacts that solar farms will have directly behind our yards, behind our property, I invite you to sit at the table with my family, to watch a football game on our couch, grill with us on our patio, swim in our pool, sit by the fire pit, and enjoy the beautiful scenic views that could be lost if a solar farm was erected there. I'm willing to bet that most of us would not have built there had we known that those 88 acres could be rezoned for solar use. Combined, between 4 households, including mine, we have invested almost $500,000 in outdoor living spaces, from in-ground pools to fire pits and areas, because of these sweeping views that we wish to protect. And I for sure would not have invested in this property if I had known that this is what could have come. I am in support of sustainable and renewable energy with proper and carefully laid out areas. I am in support of the town creating overlay maps to preemptively plan for where Victor is prepared to designate these approved solar farm sites. And I am adamantly against them being right outside our neighborhood backyards or 30 feet from residential homes. I think that this would not be protecting our citizens in the way and their quality of life. And as I stated in the last meeting, if you allow this once, it sets a precedent for future plans. I believe the way forward is for the town of Victor to establish a solar farm overlay. This protects both current residents and future residents relocating into our community. With the overlays, people will have the ability to protect themselves from building a home that is adjacent to an approved solar farm site, because the designated areas will have already been defined and established. Without solar site overlays, literally anyone with a field view holds an indefinite risk of solar farm development. That could happen to you, your friends, or children. I support and think it's absolutely crucial that you approve the 6-month moratorium to postpone the approval process. This time needs to be spent diligently creating a plan for how the town of Victor can accommodate for solar and sustainable energy projects. Like you said at the last meeting, it's here, the time is now. Let's shape the future, not continually react by being unprepared. I want to say thank you for your time, and I want to say thank you for listening, because that really matters to me and my family and all of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public?
Supervisor Marin, members of the town board, nice to see you all again this evening. I'll keep my comments brief. At the last meeting, you'll recall, I raised several legal objections, and I should introduce myself, Rob Brenner, 1532 Beaumont Way. I had raised several legal objections with the application and some difficulties that I thought the developer would encounter moving forward with the NSF2 site. I spoke at length with counsel to Norbit Solar over the past 2 weeks, and appreciate them hearing the concerns of myself and the neighbors and withdrawing the project on the MTP of Ithaca parcel. I think that addresses a lot of the concerns that I and my neighbors have. I understand, they're considering parcels to the south, and that makes some sense given what I had said at the past meeting about special use permit standards that are in the code now and overlay district considerations. So I appreciate them listening. I appreciate them listening quickly, and I appreciate you all giving us the forum to voice our concerns. The second thing I just wanted to say is I appreciate the invitation very much to join the Solar Task Force. I look forward to working with council members Oger and Guinan on local law changes, overlay districts, and providing some of the technical input I have based on my experience with these types of projects around the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Any other members of the public care to offer comments?
Good evening, Supervisor Mayor and members of the town board. My name is Chase Johnston, 1534 Beaumont Way, and I've come here today to speak in support of the moratorium. While sustainable energy is something I support, I do commend the town for considering the moratorium to take a pause and determine which parcels in the town of Victor are suitable for facilities like the one proposed by Norbit. While many may argue that undeveloped agricultural and forest land may be a suitable option, it doesn't come without considerations. It is here that I take pause for my family, my neighbors, and other residents of the town of Victor, and urge the town to make the appropriate assessments, solar law changes, and create overlay districts. Laws are only as good as the information made available at the time of adoption. With that in mind, I believe a local review and some updates are on the horizon in the best interest of the residents of the town. Taking the 6 months to make these determinations, create new local laws, and protect non-participating residents is of utmost importance here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other members of the public?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I did speak last time. My name is Katisha Hunter. I'm at 1535 Beaumont Way. And, I came to go point by point on what I thought, but it sounds like you guys have acquiesced at least a little bit, and I appreciate that, and I'm also still in support that you have the moratorium. I'm glad they're exploring more options. I think you should as well, right? Considering the residents and our property, and, our way of life, and how we'll be impacted with these things in our backyards. So with that being said, I won't belabor it. I'll just say thank you. Thank you for listening. It proves that this process works. And I hope that you also continue to bring us to the table. We want solar energy, right? We just don't want it in our backyards. And anything that we can do to help, further that along or give some thoughts, I'm sure we'd all be happy to do so. I'm glad you invited one of our neighbors to be part of the planning, but I think the rest of us might have some interest as well. So whatever forums, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other members of the public? Okay. Board members, if there's no objection, I just assume close the public hearing. And the only other item, and for written comments as well, and I know the Ontario County Planning Board will be meeting this Wednesday, I think it is. And those comments come back from the county, we'll enter that as part of the record, if that's fine with council as well.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. That said, need a motion for that?
We did.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I apologize, I should have said this one before I call for closing of that. Certainly, I want to thank the vendor for consideration, taking notes at the last meeting, certainly diligently writing again this evening, and also for our residents to come out and speak. And as cited, each one of these board members would concur as well. That's what this process is for, an opportunity to hear from the residents. As far as adding Rob to the committee, I did do some background check on him, and I reached out to his father-in-law, and his father-in-law said he had never heard of the individual before. So, Rob, I would say on Father's Day, maybe you ought to do a little barbecuing and mend things up with your father-in-law. Just my own thoughts, but, okay. Board members' approval of meeting minutes, this would be the March 25th town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Manifest number 7 awaits the introduction of the town clerk.
Manifest number 7 in the amount of $419,814.58 has been reviewed by the Victor Town Board with the following accounts charged: General Town-wide, General Outside Village, Highway Town-wide, and Trust and Agency.
Thank you, Kim. Again, what we attempt to do is identify expenditures that are in the range of or exceed $5,000, and we'll start here with payment number 1 to Civic Plus software, annual renewal. Payment to Deere and Company for a tractor for the Highway Department. Payment to Harris Beach, legal fees for the month of March. Payment to Integrated System for the April hosting and license fees. Payment to Jim Barnard Chevrolet for 2 highway pickup trucks, and payment to MVP Healthcare for the March healthcare for the employees, and payment to NoCo Energy for diesel fuel for the month of March. Total of these above-mentioned expenditures is $378,887.61. Total town expenditures minus the previous mentioned expenditures equals $40,926.97. Town board members, you have any questions on this evening's abstract? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the payments hereof.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, privilege of the floor. Lehigh Place Residential Community, Matt. Well, brought back by popular demand. Hello, Jerry, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. It's always a pleasure to be back in Victor, and we're here tonight on the privilege of the floor to talk a little bit about the Lehigh Place residential community. For the record, my name is Jerry Goldman. I'm the attorney and agent for DeFelice Development. Mark DeFelice is here with us, sitting in the middle of the three gentlemen on my right. Matt Tomlinson is the project engineer. He is sitting closest to me. And at the far left is Jim Fahey, who is a project architect. This project is located on the east side of Victor Hills Parkway. It's located between the FLCC Victor campus on the west and the Auburn Trail on the east. It's a 14-acre site. It's currently zoned light industrial, as is the rest of the Victor Corporate Park site. We're looking to take the 14 acres and to rezone it to a PD classification, a planned district for residential, to construct 3 4-story buildings, each of which would contain 52 apartments for a total of 156 units, which would be a density of about 11 units per acre, which is within normal standards of density that you would see for this type of residential project. This matter was previously before the board and discussed, believe it or not, in 2021. It was a while ago. And I was not part of that presentation, but I think the other 3 gentlemen were. There seemed to be some consensus that, or at least there seemed to be some interest in approaching having a residential component along with the Victor Corporate Park here, Victor Heights Corporate Park. It's kind of interesting because we aspire to mixed use in a lot of places, and we're kind of coming at it in a piece-by-piece fashion. Started out as primarily industrial and somewhat commercial, then the FLCC campus came in, and now we're looking at a residential component. We think that this residential component makes a lot of sense, given to its proximity to the Auburn Trail and its ability to access the village off of Route 251 coming in. There is support in a lot of planning documents for what we're talking about here in particular. The ones that I'm talking about are, one, the town's comprehensive plan. Town's comprehensive plan talks about higher density residential in the commercial light industrial corridors, also developing where there are utilities, water and sewer. And also, there's a benefit to us not being centric to Route 96 in terms of being able to utilize Route 251 as primary access. We think that residential use in the neighborhood of businesses is a good thing for those who are interested in having the ability to work near their home. Also, we would anticipate most of the units being scheduled at this point to be 2-bedroom units to see a fair amount of empty nesters on this site, both young and old, if you will, on the particular site. But also, more importantly, since the last time we were here, Ontario County conducted a housing needs assessment and broke it out into 4 sub-market areas. We're in sub-market 2 here in Victor. Victor, Farmington, and Canandaigua are part of that particular sub-area. And in that area, we have a need for growth. We have 2.4% vacancy rate in the area. There's some discussion that in order to absorb what we intend to have, we need approximately 250 units per year available to add. One of the issues that we had was the question of 4 stories, and I'm going to leave that as much to the engineer and architect, except for to say that we have a unique site here. We are set back well from Route 251, as you can see, which is on the bottom of the picture. We were asked to bring perspective drawings. We have multiple perspective drawings, not really visible at all from 251. There is visibility from one perspective on the Auburn Trail where there isn't an ability to really substantially screen the use. But at the same time, I can tell you myself as a trail walker that there's nothing more boring than to actually have a long path and nothing on it. So the objective really is to create some interesting views and vistas, and we believe that the Victor Hiking Trails people will like that as well. I think I'm going to stop talking at this point and turn it back over to Matt and Jim, who will probably say I took half of what they were going to say, but that's the privilege of going first, I guess. Thank you.
Good evening, Matt Tomlinson from Marathon. Jerry's right, he did touch on most of it, but if we can flip back to the second slide, which is the site plan briefly, I'll just go over a couple of details before walking through the perspectives. So as Jerry mentioned, we've got three buildings that are all similar in size. What we're proposing is the 156 units. These will be market rate apartments. We're proposing a total of 300 parking spaces with that, so just under 2 parking spaces per unit, with a number of those being covered or in garages, which we think will be very attractive to the tenants here. We've attempted to design this in such a way that the buildings are staggered or not creating a solid wall against either the trail or the roadway, and that creates some triangular areas of lawn or green space that'll be well used to break up some of those facades as you approach by screening with landscaping, some landforms, that kind of thing. The total development area is approximately 7 acres of what's shown with the buildings on it. The remaining 7 acres, roughly, of the 14 are comprised kind of to the south and to the east of what you're looking at here. There's a variety of wetlands, which are a continuation of a lot of the wetlands within the park on the opposite side of the trail, as well as stormwater management for the overall project. Relative to access to the trails, Jerry mentioned, we are somewhat visible from the trail, though there's quite a bit of vegetation, especially as you go north along the trail there. We would propose to add screening, but that's also where we focused many of the amenities that are proposed for the project. We're proposing a small dog park, pool and patio, leasing and amenity space in a couple of areas, the eastmost building on the south side, as well as across the parking lot from there. We want our residents in the community to bring a level of activity through this area to the trail that adds to the pedestrian, the bikers, and so on. Relative to the constraints of the site, I mentioned the wetlands and the stormwater management, and there's an economic part of this for the owner as well, of course. Reducing this to 3 stories would eliminate, and Jim will correct me if I'm wrong on the numbers, but eliminate roughly a third in total of the units, with accommodations on the first floor for some of the garages and common space. And so dropping to 100 to 110 units with the level investment that'll be needed on the site specifically would potentially make this an infeasible project just for the return on investment. Jerry mentioned a couple other things, and part of the reason why we've delayed until now, even though we came back in October of '21 before this board, the DeFelices have also prepared a market study, which is in addition to the Ontario County planning, as well as the Victor Town Comprehensive Plan, Town and Village Comprehensive Plan. All those definitely demonstrate a need for housing within the area. And then the traffic piece. We've also done a traffic study to take a look at potential impacts for this area. And the great benefit of this location, other than the infrastructure that's already in place to help support it, really is that there is sufficient traffic network off of Route 96 to help support the proposed development and density. So if we can go to the next one, I handed out a hard copy just because I think it's probably going to be easier for the board to look at the key map there as I walk through the views and describe that. So I'm going to start with location A. If you go to the next one, this is at the westmost intersection of Victor Heights Parkway and Route 251. The project site is located in between the existing building and some of the vegetation along there with limited visibility. The elevation of the buildings is about 15 feet below this intersection, just for a frame of reference from an elevation standpoint. Going to the location B view, which is midway between the two Victor Heights Parkway intersection points. With on there, it's really not visible through the existing vegetation and structures. This is right near the church's driveway there, the community church's driveway. Location C is at the east intersection, where you can see a portion of the roof line behind the existing Finger Lakes facility. This elevation is about 8 feet above the floor elevation of the buildings, just for frame of reference, again, from an elevation standpoint. Location D, we were asked to potentially look at visibility from Route 96, just to see if there was opportunity for those buildings to be seen. We selected a location which that I believe is the Doodlebugs building on the right-hand side, so about midpoint or just across midpoint, with visibility unblocked by buildings from Route 96, and nothing was visible above the tree lines when that was modeled. Locations E, F, and G are all along the frontage of the trail as you proceed. So location E being the westmost location along the trail at the rear, location F about midway, and then location G being the most visible, where the trail is slightly lower than or approximately the same elevation as where the building pads will be. This is to give visibility or to show the board what we anticipate the most visible view of those apartments are. So other than immediately proximate to the project site, from a visual standpoint, very little, if any, impact can be noted for the surrounding areas and roadways. And to Jerry's point, we believe that we're creating an attractive product that will be activated by residents of the town. And so some visibility from the trail is not necessarily a negative, especially in this proximity and in this context. The last slide is just that same, or the last visual slide, is just that same view with what we anticipate being able to provide for some of the screening. This is adjacent immediately to where the existing trail access, and we would propose to maintain that existing trail access. I think folks park in the Finger Lakes parking lot and can access that along the roadway, and we'd be proposing to enhance or add to the pedestrian access through that area. The last slide, I'll turn it over to Jim and let him talk a little bit about the building itself before we open it up for questions.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, Mr. Marin and fellow town board members. I'm Jim Fahey from Fahey Design Associates. We are the architects for the Lehigh Place project. The buildings that we're proposing, as Matt had mentioned and Jerry had mentioned, it's a 4-story market rate apartment building, a high density in nature where we have 52 units within the building. It's a breakdown of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment buildings, or apartments in the building. Our 1 bedroom, 1 bath units range from just under 800 square feet to low 900 square feet. Our 2 bedroom, 2 bath units will vary from just over 1,000 square feet to just over 1,200 square feet in size. And we have a 3 bedroom, 2 bath unit that will be just over 1,300 square feet. These are typical apartment unit sizes for market rate in today's market. All of the units will be on an accessible route. We'll have an elevator in the building and 2 remote accessible style stairways for access to all 4 floors. The units will all be designed in compliance with national accessibility standards. They will be labeled as Type B units, which provides use for those with mobility impairments. Every single unit in the project will be designed for that, in that nature. There'll be 10 integral single-car garages within 2 of the 3 buildings. A third building will have 5 integral garages. The other 5 bay garage area will be reproportioned to a facility for a community room and workout area. There'll be a mail center in every building. There'll be tenant storage in every building and a trash room in every building. So these are state-of-the-art market rate apartments, highly desirable across the board. As Matt had mentioned, we have considerable attached or detached garages with this, 72 in total, which accounts for 46% of the apartments proposed. So there'll be an offering of quite a number of these units will have the ability to bring their car into a private parking area. Our building exterior, as you're looking here on the screen, will be all maintenance-free to low-maintenance materials with a mix of cultured stone, high-quality vinyl siding and windows, with PVC trim and composite decking. So maintaining these buildings over time should be a pretty easy process so that as they age, where there's not a lot of maintenance to the buildings. Jerry had touched on the Ontario County Housing Needs Assessment Study, and getting a little bit off the building and not trying to beat a dead horse here, but I think it's important for the board, and I'm sure you're keenly aware of some of these points and maybe all of these points. You know you're the second fastest growing township in Ontario County, and you're within the fastest growing zone of Ontario County when you combine Victor, Farmington, and Canandaigua. There is a large need for this type of housing in your community. The study will note that 60% of future construction in Ontario County will be directed towards your senior market. One of the key takeaways from that study was the need for a diversity in housing choices to accommodate all life stages and household needs. They came up with multiple ways of addressing this. 2 key ones were to promote the development of multifamily apartments, townhomes, and condominiums in underutilized areas near amenities with existing infrastructure. Our site is perfectly placed for that. And also, they are urging townships to review their development standards for new zoning standards for areas deemed appropriate for higher density housing. Again, I feel this location couldn't be a better spot for high-density housing, and especially high-density where we're pushing up to 4 stories in height. The town understands in your comprehensive plan of the issues that you face as you develop and grow as a township. Management of anticipated growth, 1 key. Presentation and enhancement of your town's aesthetic guidelines. Prevention of inefficient and unattractive sprawling developments. All key issues that make perfect sense. I believe that permitting of strategically located high-density infill sites like Lehigh Place could not be a better way to address those issues while also addressing your growth and population in the town of Victor. The style of living that we're proposing is not just something that's attractive to the empty nesters and the active seniors. This is highly attractive and desirable from our younger population. There has truly been a shift in housing trends to accommodate the shift in lifestyle choices within all age groups. This, personally, on a personal side, and I've had my business here in Rochester for almost 40 years, this has been an education for me. I've had to pivot my business as these housing trends changed and lifestyle choices have changed through the years. This is a trend that's here, and I don't see it changing for many years to come. In my opinion, my professional opinion, there could not be a better opportunity for the town to look favorably on a high-density infill project of 4-story apartments than what we're proposing to you this evening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll kind of moderate the question and answer, if you will. I don't have much to add except for to say that the scale of the 4-story building is not as imposing as many that I've seen. You take a look at the roof lines, while they are pitched, they're not particularly high. So there are a substantial number of 3-story buildings that would wind up being higher in terms of height. So for all the reasons that have been stated relative to the need and desire to have the density and the size that we have, primarily one being that 150 units is a sweet spot, if you will, for the number of units for a sustainable development. We urge that you positively consider this and give us a go-ahead, if you will, to make application for the PD formally. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Do have a, Matt, is that a private road into the complex, or is it the town-dedicated road?
Victor Heights Parkway is a town-dedicated road up until the west boundary of this property. It's privately owned and maintained from the west edge of the parcel all the way through to the east intersection with Route 251.
Okay, thank you. And I do, I know we have two individuals here from the, in a leadership role at Victor Hiking Trails, so they're never shy about coming to the podium, so I'm sure under public comment they'll voice their thoughts as well. So I do want to compliment the team, Mark and Frank, and the team you put together here, because there certainly was some efforts made, certainly significant efforts to follow up on comments made from the board members here previously regarding the height levels and traffic study, market study, and certainly I think the county need assessment addressing that certainly makes sense. And Jim, to your point, Canandaigua, Farmington, and Victor, last I knew, we totaled, I think it's 85% of the building permits issued in Ontario County come from those three communities, which is, to your point, pretty compelling when you think about the growth in this region of the county. So at this time, I know, again, you've addressed our concerns from what's it look like from Route 96, what's it look like from Route 251, you know, what's, you know, first of all, do we support the project, and then are we supportive of the 4 stories as recommended here? So, board members, I certainly would ask that you offer comments, and so. Yes, no?
Yeah, I do have a few, Supervisor. Excuse me. We always ask this with a lot of the proposed projects because it's not our jurisdiction, but from a curiosity standpoint, really, the school district has been fairly clear that they don't see any long-term trajectory that increases the demand on their facilities there, but certainly they're pretty landlocked there as far as growing. So that's always kind of a concern we, at least consider or ask questions about. In a development like this, do you get a pretty good idea of how many school-aged children it adds to the school district? Just from that perspective, as far as adding kids, and that doesn't relate to kind of the process here, but more so from a curiosity perspective.
That's something we clearly can look into, but in my experience in dealing with these types of projects, a lot of people do raise concern with regard to the impact on the school district. and whether it will overload the school district. School districts uniformly have come back and have said that we welcome more kids to come in, but that's something that as we proceed with our application, we can make that inquiry.
Sure, thank you. And on the Delta view, showing it from that Route 96 perspective, is there a change in the winter months when the leaves are off the trees? Does it give any view through to the structure?
We were using the available imaging for that, and I don't have one without the foliage on there, but it was significantly below the level of the tree there,
Okay.
so we could do some more exploration, but I don't anticipate that that would be very visible. It's over
With
12,
certainty, though, the viewpoint from the peak height is still going to be below the grade
crown
of
of
the
the
trees.
trees, that's correct.
Okay.
yeah.
And board members, if I may, our former project coordinator, Kim Kinsella, had referenced the apartments built across from Locust Hill. If any of you have driven by there recently, from a comparable standpoint, 4 stories and what 4 stories would look like. So.
And then certainly this is a question that I know that the team at LaBelle and Wes and his colleagues will certainly take a deep dive at, but I'm certainly one of the bigger questions I would have is the demand on the pump stations and how that will relate to our sewer system. So that's certainly not something that we probably have information on tonight, but certainly will be a very important question that I expect that we would consider moving forward.
Sure.
And then the only other question I have at this point, I know there are varying opinions on, for example, the Auburn Trail and, residential units like this, and then there are varying opinions amongst the interface between that light industrial and residential. From the one seat I sit in, I think that if it's done properly, I do see some great benefit to having the recreational facilities available in such great proximity. I think that that's certainly an added benefit. We put a lot of time and effort into those facilities, and we want our residents to use them and to have residents that would have that access immediately to that Auburn Trail and be able to network around the town in a recreational capacity would certainly be advantageous to them and to the system that we've developed here in Victor, which is very nice. So, certainly I can see that there are two sides to it. I tend to lean towards kind of liking that interface, but, there are certainly things to consider. And then the only last question I have, and maybe comment, is looking at the scale of this. Certainly, the building side to side looks to me to be about 60 feet or so, and just from an emergency vehicle perspective, there are certainly some tighter turns and corners there. Looking at a ladder truck from the fire department, easily negotiating those turns certainly would come into the planning process of getting the feedback from those departments, but that's certainly a point to consider on a higher density project.
Right. As we get into further design, we'll have turning templates for the anticipated emergency vehicles, fire vehicles, et cetera.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, I'll just make a couple comments. I'll be frank, I don't want to waste your time. I'm not in support of this project, whether it be the 4 stories or not. I think the current zoning of what it is working. I don't see a need to change it. I know you mentioned the Ontario County Housing Study, which I'm somewhat familiar with, but I haven't had a chance to, look at it a little bit. But just to pull up some numbers, I know we're in Section 2 of that study, and the town of Victor falls into Section 2, and actually 88.9% of all rental housing units in the county fall within Section 2 of the zoning that the county housing assessment reviewed. So if we're looking at rental units, I think we've got plenty. In that case, if you're, looking maybe for the need, would be probably outside of Section 2. And then to talk about, Councilman Cusimano brought up children in the school district. I know you said obviously you're trying to gear it towards seniors, et cetera, but obviously you can't, you're not putting any age restrictions on the building, so you can't predict how many school-age children would be there. I can tell you when I pass the Morgan properties on my way to work every day, if I'm too late and the school bus is there and I get stopped behind it, it's 32 kids that get on the bus. So I don't think that that's, we can't say that there won't be an impact on the school district or that it's just going to be seniors. As well, I think with the number of units that you've proposed, a large strain on our roads with that many cars, and on our highway facility and our highway team. So I don't think, right now, when we have kind of put the pause or trying to work towards building a new highway facility, I don't think the time would be correct to introduce, this many cars into driving on our town roads, et cetera.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Any other board members?
The only thing I would add is, since 2016, and I'm not saying I'm for or against, I mean, I think it's a lot of units. Not sure what the price point will be for rental. But since 2016, I'm going to say we've approved between us, the planning board, through zoning, probably there's 300-plus units out there right now, and a shovel hasn't gone into the ground on any of those that we've approved. And so that causes me pause to wait to see. I mean, I don't know why a shovel hasn't gone in the ground. I mean, they were approved, and some have even come back and asked for an extension. And I'm not opposed to how they look. I do get a little concerned over there with TLC and the traffic over in that area in the morning, like you say, getting stuck behind there. But I guess I'm on the fence right now. I mean, Jerry, no disrespect, but I love walking the Auburn Trail and not seeing anything. So, just.
You plug in with headsets and
No,
just
right,
go
right.
straight
I mean,
ahead?
I get it, and I know you're gonna see a few of those units up there, and I think the ones up by Locust, I mean, obviously Locust, wasn't getting the golfers, so they needed a little cash, and, I mean, those are nice-looking units, I get that. Like I say, right now, I am trying to weigh all of that, and thinking about, it, just being honest with you guys, just letting you know where I'm sitting.
Appreciate it.
Yep, appreciate your honesty. Councilman, anything?
I'm a little more, I mean, I'm not set on the size of it, the number of units, but I think there's more of a, I mean, it's obvious that there is in our three towns of Farmington, Canandaigua, and Farmington, there's a trend for it. I don't know that there's a need for it. I wouldn't use that as my thing, but I think that it's a great looking project. I think in some ways what you say is it being that the spot, the location is a great opportunity, I think, because of the elevation from the road. If we were ever going to consider 4 stories in town someplace, that would probably be the place for it. Because from 251 and from 96, you wouldn't know that it's a 4-story structure.
Right.
The other portions of that, and I think with our transportation study that we did, it sort of blends in with that. So I'm not as against it from that standpoint, and I have driven down in there. I know the property, and I did way back when you came back the first time. Drove into their old project and drove around there, and I do think that from a visibility standpoint, I travel Jefferson Road all the time, and the ones that are built across from Locust Hill are on level ground, and they look big, and to me, they look out of place, where, I do think this would be a better position for it. I think it just doesn't stand out as much. I think the quality's there. We know the kind of product that they put, so I guess from my standpoint, I'm not as opposed to it as some of the other people might be. I think in town, I don't know what the size is going to come down to that's going to be approved in the long run, but I think the structure, if it was going to be any place, that it probably does fit into probably where it would fit within the town.
Right. Thank you.
I do have one more question. Obviously, the structures themselves are, I presume, are going to be a Type 5 sprinklered building. The covered parking areas, those would be unsprinklered. Is that correct?
Why don't you come up to the podium? They're open.
You're correct. The buildings will be type 5A, so they will be protected, wood framed with a NFPA 13R sprinkler system. The detached garages do not have sprinklers.
All right. Is there requirements, and just, this is from my, I guess, curiosity perspective, are there spacing requirements from covered parking garages related to how proximal they are to the primary structures? Just so that you're creating that distance and gap when you have 3 or 4 or 5 vehicles that
Yeah,
catch fire?
they're designed principally understanding a drive lane and then the potential for cars to be parked in front of a garage door.
Sure.
That's usually what the design is, which is well beyond any fire separation requirement in the building code.
All right, thank you.
Board members, thanks for your comments. Well, Jerry, I, certainly some great points made by the team here presenting comments back from the board members. I know certainly we talked about the vast majority of building permits in this county come from the 3 municipalities, and certainly there's a lot of this type of growth, apartments in both Farmington and Victor. Councilman Condon's point, there is some apartments that they're just starting some earthwork today on a project that's been on delay for a couple of years here, you know, whether it's pandemic related, you know, fiscally and stuff like that. What I can't give you right now is the direction you need, is because I'm not hearing across the board, myself included, that whether or not the apartments is the right thing, and clearly whether 4 stories is the right thing. So I'm asking that, you know, maybe it's a pause and revisiting with myself, the building and planning department, or the entire board in the future here.
Be glad to sit down and meet with you, with the building and planning department. We can revisit with the board if there's a desire to entertain a formal application. We can do that as well, and let the public weigh in formally. I don't know whether Victor Hiking Trails is going to speak tonight or whatever, but I can speak to the issue right now that you addressed. Between supply chain issues and then financing, it's been a challenging environment these days to be able to get residential units off the ground, in particular multifamily residential units. I've gone through a lot of approvals, and some of them have been on hold or on pause, but certainly this is, you know, you're familiar with the Victor Heights development. It's been in development for Lord knows how many years. And the reality of it is I think it's unlikely that this particular area is going to develop for light industrial use under any circumstances. We have to be able to consider viable alternatives for this particular area. So, yeah, we look forward to engaging further, and we'll be contacting you directly, and then we'll see what direction that takes us in.
Well, thank you, and I certainly respect your last comment on Victor Heights and that whole area, and, you know, as far as the development. Light industrial building within this community has slowed, and so certainly a variety of living, you know, for folks is certainly what we're seeing. We've seen the change from the single family to more certainly townhouses or you know, empty nester type of attraction. Certainly there's still a lot of acreage still in our town. I mean, our zoning will certainly minimize any type of density, but certainly there's still opportunities for single family homes to be built, and you know, townhouses as well. I do see active golf courses today that I'm not so sure they'll be active down the road, and that's, you know, it's a lot of acreage as well. That so when we sit here, you know, knowing that it's a light industrial, and it's light industrial today and was yesterday and will be tomorrow, for us to, you know, whether or not how much we support the need for the additional apartments in this community, is this an area we want to go with right now? So.
I understand.
Not what you're looking for. Certainly, I'm sure there's disappointment from the team, but, you know, I think, you know, I respect the opinions of each one of the board members, and certainly there was flat-out no's, there was some fence, and then some in-betweeners. So,
Thank you.
Okay?
Supervisor, I apologize to come in at the end. I do have one more question I thought I'd like to ask. Is this, so from looking at this from the light industrial to residential, kind of that blended in the same development, is there, I'm sure this type of development has occurred in many, many places across the country. Is this seen as favorable to both sides, meaning that the businesses in these areas, like that they have kind of some workforce housing in the area? I don't think that there's would ever be a concern for that from the residential perspective. Are there concerns about a facility like this being adjacent to non-residential?
I think there's a synergy that occurs, and I think a lot of what we're seeing now in development are what are referred to as mixed-use developments, which do incorporate elements of commercial and residential. I think it may actually help inspire some of those vacant spaces on Victor Heights Parkway that have signs in front of them right now, to be able to revitalize them, if you will, if there is an availability of workforce. I know workforce housing, I know that has been a factor in other communities. I think it's beneficial.
All right, thank you.
You know, if I may, I know over where our recreation facility is, Lehigh Crossings over in that area, the concerns, and again, I'll go back to some property off of Route 251 between Willis and Strong. That's been a number of times. We've had teams come before us and talk about, apartments, single-family homes, townhouses, where all around that area, it's single-family homes, like your residential area. What we've seen is now, and I'm talking to landlords, is people just not coming back. I mean, if you're a company now, you have to be creative to retain employees and attract employees, and a lot of it is individuals at this current point in our lives are fine with working from home, and that's what companies are offering, and we're seeing more and more of that. And I know there's a lot of fairly empty buildings in our town, and some that we hope that will be filled at some point, and so I don't know if that's clearly an argument. I don't think it has, and I'm not disrespecting you, I'm not sure that workforce housing has the same meaning it did a few years ago, pre-pandemic.
I can tell you, part of what we're seeing, and I know in our business now, I'll speak for Frank for a second, is that one of the first questions that employees have is there an option to partially work from home? And I think that what we're seeing now is more of a hybrid than we used to. I think for the businesses in our area, I think for the most part, there is some in-office component and some out-of-office component. Most people don't want to work 5 days a week necessarily in the office. They want to have a little bit more flexibility to share. So in that regard, I think the benefit of having housing nearby where the workplace is has some merit and some value.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, sorry, I apologize, just like Drew. If I could just jump on just to say a quick thing about, I know there was a lot of conversation about multifamily housing and housing needs, et cetera. And, just looking at the kind of big picture here, I think within, obviously the last few years, we've all talked about housing. And I don't think, and actually, when you mentioned the Ontario County Housing Study, there was a section in it of people actually looking for larger homes. They're looking for homes where they can have a home office, work from home. They're not looking maybe all the time for apartments. And I think maybe if we all even think about, we're just speaking generally with our friends, family, et cetera, you're seeing people who are looking to purchase homes that are getting priced out of the market. Obviously, yes, we're having some people who may want to rent, but I'd say in our area in particular, we have heard from many people of, we are looking to purchase a home. We may currently be renting. We may currently have a home that's too small for us, but we're looking to purchase something, not to rent.
We have a market study that we have performed, and Matt had alluded to it since we were here last, which speaks to the fact that we certainly can absorb the multifamily units that we are proposing here. So, while there is a component of people who obviously do want to have single-family homes, we do have single-family zoning, which is available in town. Certainly, this is not going to be the area for single-family housing, but I think that in reality, there is a demand. It's kind of interesting when you think of the dynamic that we have right now of not necessarily a whole lot of population growth, but we do have demand for residential units. Now, I think that is becoming more into play as we have newer people coming into the workforce and everything else who are looking for their own place. So there is a market study to support that. I think that, Mark, we can share components of that market study. Certainly the proprietary information we would be a little concerned about sharing, but if there's a concern about absorption and concern about the ability, that's something that we certainly can discuss.
Thank you, Matt, Jim, and Jerry.
Thank you.
Frank. Okay, public comments and concerns, an opportunity for members of the Victor Hiking Trails and other citizens of our town as well.
Good evening, David Wright, 33 Ketchum Street, that's in the village. I'm here as a individual. I'm not representing Victor Hiking Trails. We, as a board, have not reviewed this project yet, so I'm certainly not going to speak for the board, and I'm not going to speak for all the people that use all of our trails in the town and in the village. I just want to give you my personal opinion. I do use the Auburn Trail, both walking and riding my bike, and as well as the Lehigh, which is another trail that goes through an industrial area. And I think I would much rather look at garden apartments than an industrial warehouse or whatever else would be proposed for that area. So I'm certainly not against looking at apartments. I think they would be a benefit to the town as far as marketing and the height of the building and all that. I'll leave that up to the experts, the fire department, and I'm sure the owner of the property is not going to be building something that's not going to be occupied. It's not going to be to his benefit. So I'm sure he's done a lot of marketing to make sure that it was a feasible project. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Okay. Under reports of town officials, recognition of our former board member Ed Kohovic. He must, as sitting here, he's probably feeling like he's still on the board, but
Yeah, he's nodding his head.
So Ed, why don't you come forward, and I'm going to turn it over to our newest town board member, and she's going to recognize you here with a couple proclamations.
Yes. So I know it's been a few months because Ed, like when he was on the board, is very devoted to being retired and has taken that commitment very seriously and has been out of town for quite some time. But these unfortunately came after he left the board. We have a proclamation here from Congresswoman Tenney, as well as a proclamation from the State Assembly, from Assemblyman Gallahan and Assemblywoman Burns, in honor of your time and service on the board. I won't read both of them in length, but I will just read a small snippet from Congresswoman Tenney's. Now, therefore, be it resolved on behalf of Congress of the United States and I recognize Edward Kohovic on his extraordinary engagement to his beloved community. Thank you for making your community a better place for all.
Thank you.
With that, Ed, we'd like to present you with these. Do you want to come up? Do you want to? Thank you.
So Ed, I know you're a big Yankee fan, and you have a Yankees room in your house. So is that where the framed one is going? There's room on one of the walls. Last time I... Ed, I'm not feeling any love right now.
So, for those of you who don't know, my wife will make that decision. Okay, as much as I would like to claim that room for my own, it'll be up to her.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Ed, very much.
Thank you.
Okay, also, we have our finance report is in the reports of town officials, and I do want to thank Rich for his efforts for completing the end-of-year report and getting that off to Albany to keep them happy. In addition, we anticipate possibly that we'll have our annual audit presentation at our next town board meeting on the 22nd of this month. So, Rich, again, thank you very much. I know you put a lot of time into that as well. And so I have a few items as a reminder. I did leave in your mailboxes a traffic report from the Ontario County Sheriff's Department earlier today. Reminder that Arbor Day event will be kicking off at Harlan Fisher Park on April 20th between 10 and 10:30 in the morning. An update on I mentioned previously, we had a New York State DOT meeting here on March 18th. The highway superintendent and I attended that, and we reviewed the Route 96 corridor, Brace Road, and by Auction Direct. And Benson Road certainly is on the DOT's radar for accidents, as well as the Omnitech intersection by the Quickfill. And so they're well aware of those. In addition, in your mailbox, you had previously, I had submitted a Victor Fire District, Farmington Fire District report, and a Ontario County media release on workforce development grants that were awarded. Certainly, there's a number of Victor businesses that were very fortunate. Also, there's a proclamation of a Fishers Fire District retiree, a Richard Losey, proclamation of appreciation. And I did have an opportunity to attend his luncheon, retirement luncheon last week. Update on Richardson Road, a partial setup is scheduled for tomorrow, the 9th. Demolition is planned for the 10th and 11th of that house. Signage has been added to the entrance of the house, warning of upcoming asbestos abatement, which is required. And then, in addition, in your mail slots was the 101 ways county governments serve New Yorkers. So, that's all I have. Town board members, care to report on any liaison responsibilities you may have?
Supervisor, the only thing I'd like to comment on regarding resolution number 3 for this evening, regarding the appointment of Tim Niver and Elizabeth Eckert for the Citizens Advisory Committee. I just wanted to mention that they both joined us in our last CAC meeting. And Elizabeth, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's sometimes a challenge to find a student this day and age that's interested in participating in a government role like this, and I hope that she finds it rewarding. And again, thank you. And then specific to Tim, certainly as the director of our library, there's a lot of symbiotic areas between the library services and Parks and Rec, and I think that he can really help to engage areas of both of those departments. So I think it'll be a great addition for both of them.
Well, Councilman, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and certainly, yes, Elizabeth, it looks nice on your resume. Plus, it's you get to hang with some adults that aren't named mom and dad, and as well. So you find out that maybe with mom and dad, maybe they're pretty accurate on some things as well. So it's good life lessons for you. Okay, if there's no further comments from board members, we will move.
I've got a couple updates, actually. Since our town clerk isn't here, just wanted to give a small shout out to the town clerk in her office for the 2 months of tax money that she collected. She was able to earn $117,381.05 off of the interest from that 2 months. I attended the village board meeting last week. They have a new council member, Sean McAdoo. He took the spot of Bob Kelly on the village board. He'll also be taking over the liaison positions for him on Victor Roundtable, as well as, I don't remember the other one, but he'll also be taking on an additional and new liaison role as part for sewer in discussions between, he said, the village, town, and Farmington. attended the Conservation Board meeting, nothing really out of the ordinary there. Councilman Guine and I met to discuss the solar task force regarding the recommending changes to the town code. That task force will be meeting hopefully sometime late this week or early next week. The group will consist of Councilman Guinan, myself, Keith Maynard, Adam Rysek, our code enforcement officer, Mike Reinhardt, Rob Brenner, and Wes Petty. Also wanted to see actually if we had a update on the changing tables. Supervisor, I know you said you were meeting with Brian and that you'd bring it up with him in your conversation.
Brian's been away on vacation, just got back today, so
Okay.
I haven't met with Brian.
Okay, and then I know last time you said that you thought there might be one in the basement. I checked today, and it didn't look like we had one there, so just for future note when we're hopefully purchasing or planning to get those. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members? Okay, resolution number 1, amending the 2023 budget, increasing A fund capital reserves for unappropriated, unassigned fund balance.
So moved.
Second.
And I think a large part of that is not only good budgeting, but a thank you to our staff and our employees for being conscious of expenditures and things of that nature. So I think that's a job well done, and obviously the additional interest that we've been able to pick up and things like that. But, you know, as we move forward, adding to our reserve fund is a great way to help offset future taxes, obviously, when we get ready for this highway facility and the road that we're going to lead down. So moved.
Thank you. And I think we have a second.
I had a second.
Okay. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 1 is passed. Number 2, acceptance of the resignation of Elliot Bowerman from the...
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And as Councilman Cusimano mentioned earlier, the Victortown Board hereby reappoints the following residents to boards and committees.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well, Elizabeth, congratulations again, and Tim, I know you're not here, but thank you as well. Number 4, permanent appointment to Michael Stockman, the Recreation.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 5, updated to the organizational chart.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Agreement with Arbor Care Tree Management.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 6 is passed. Number 7, agreement with Jeffrey Smith, and this is for legendary mobile laser tag for.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Agreement for Tim Potter, the Dean's List. These are for our summer concert series.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And number 9 is a request for certificate of liability insurance. Tim Potter and Jeffrey Smith are the vendors.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 10 is acceptance letter of credit for Collier Park Crossing. Recommended estimate of construction costs are built into this as well.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Number 10 is passed. Moving to public comments, and again, an opportunity for members of the public here to address the town board. Hearing no comments, motion to adjourn this meeting.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Please round of applause.